My own son tried to kill me with a box of chocolates. If I had eaten even one, I would probably be dead right now. The only reason I'm still alive is because, on a whim, I decided to make my daughter-in-law and my grandchildren jealous, and I gave them the chocolates instead. When he called and asked, "Mom, did you like the chocolates?" I smiled and said, "Oh, I didn't eat any. I gave them to Serena and the kids. You know how much they love sweets." The silence on the other end was so heavy it felt like the world stopped. Then he screamed, like a desperate man whose whole plan had just exploded. "You did what?" At that moment, I thought he was just angry that I'd given away his gift. I had no idea that I had just ruined his perfect plan to murder me. My name is Evelyn. I'm 69 years old. And this is the story of how my only son tried to kill me for money. And how, instead of dying, I was reborn into the strongest version of myself I'd ever been. I adopted Ethan when he was 2. His biological parents died in a car accident. I was 29, alone, and I had so much love with nowhere to put it. When I saw him in that orphanage, small and silent with those enormous brown eyes, something inside me snapped into place. He became my entire world. I gave him my last name, my house, my savings, my youth, my dreams. Every double shift, every extra job, every sleepless night, I told myself it was for him. For my boy. For his future. For 40 years, I lived for Ethan. And for a long time, I thought it had all been worth it. He was a sweet child, then a brilliant teenager. Good grades, sports, friends. I went without new shoes for years to pay for his private school, his college, his fancy suits for interviews. Watching him walk into his first job at an accounting firm in Manhattan, I thought, we did it. He's safe. He'll never know the poverty I knew. I was so proud. Then he met Serena. Serena arrived in our lives like a storm. At first, I tried to like her. Really, I did. She was beautiful, polished, confident. Ethan was crazy about her. That was enough for me. Or so I told myself. But quickly, I began to notice the little comments. The whispers. The way she would curl her lips slightly when I spoke, like my words were something she had to endure. "Your mother is too nosy," she'd say to him, thinking I couldn't hear. "You're too old to be relying on her," she'd murmur, planting poison seeds in his mind. And little by little, my son changed. The daily calls became weekly. Hugs became quick, distracted pats. Visits grew shorter, then rarer, then almost non-existent. When they had children, my grandchildren, the only pure joy left in that toxic fog, I prayed it would bring us closer. Instead, Serena built a wall around them, and around Ethan. I was allowed in, but only to the front step. Only as long as it was convenient for her. Always with that fake smile that never reached her eyes. Another day. Evelyn. The kids are tired. We're just too busy right now. Next time, okay? So I waited. And hoped. And kept loving. Because that's what mothers do, right? Or that's what I believed, back then. On the morning of my 69th birthday, the doorbell rang. A courier stood there with an elegant box tied with golden ribbon. The kind of box you only see in magazine ads. "For Evelyn," he said. "From Ethan." My heart did something I hadn't felt in a long time. It fluttered. I sat at my small kitchen table and opened it slowly, savoring the moment. Inside was a stunning assortment of artisanal chocolates. Each piece was a tiny work of art. Glossy, decorated with gold dust, swirls of color, perfect shapes. There was a small card tucked inside. "To the best mother in the world. With love. Ethan." I almost cried. It had been months since I'd received any affectionate gesture from him. Maybe, I thought, Serena hadn't completely poisoned his heart against me. Maybe my boy was still in there somewhere. The chocolates looked expensive. Too expensive for someone like me to eat alone. And I did what I had done my entire life. I thought of everyone else first. These are too special to keep for myself, I told myself. Serena and the kids will love them. The little ones adore sweets. Despite the contempt their mother showed me, those children were my weakness. When I looked at them, I saw pieces of the little boy I had once held in my arms. So I carefully closed the box, wrapped it nicely, put on my coat, and drove to their house. Serena opened the door. Same fake smile. Same disinterested eyes. Hello, Evelyn. What a surprise. What brings you by? I held out the box like an offering. Ethan sent these for my birthday, I said, smiling. But I wanted to share them with you and the kids. I know how much they love sweets. For the briefest second, something flashed in her eyes. Not joy. Not gratitude. Fear. Pure, cold fear. Then it was gone, replaced by that courteous mask. What a nice gesture from Ethan, she murmured, taking the box. The kids will be thrilled. She didn't invite me in. She never did. They're sleeping, she added quickly. It was a long day. Maybe another time, Evelyn. So I went home alone, with a small sadness, but also a strange satisfaction. I told myself I'd done something kind, something generous. I even dared to hope that this little act might soften Serena's heart toward me. That night, I went to bed thinking, maybe this birthday will mark a new chapter for us. I was right. But not in the way I imagined. The next morning, my phone rang early. Mom, Ethan's voice came through the line, tighter than usual. How were the chocolates? It startled me. He never followed up on gifts. Never asked if I liked this or that. Oh, Ethan, I said lightly. I didn't eat any. I took them to Serena and the kids. You know how much they love sweets. The silence that followed was unlike anything I'd ever heard. A heavy, suffocating void. I held the phone tighter. Ethan, are you still there? Then he exploded. You did what? He screamed, his voice breaking. Tell me you're joking, Mom. Tell me you didn't give them the whole box. I froze. What's wrong? I asked. I thought you'd be happy I shared them. The children. Are you insane? He cut me off, almost hysterical. Answer me. Did you eat any? Even one? No, Ethan, I whispered, suddenly frightened. I didn't eat any. I gave the box to Serena. For her and the kids. His breathing came in ragged bursts. It wasn't anger anymore. It was panic. Real panic. Did the kids eat them yet? How many? Mom, think, he shouted. I felt a cold hand close around my heart. Ethan, why do you care so much if I ate them or not? I asked slowly. He cursed under his breath. Then, with pure hatred in his voice, he spat. You've ruined everything. You're so stupid. You always ruin everything. And he hung up. I stared at the deadline, trembling. For the first time in 40 years, I felt something I had never associated with my son. Fear. That afternoon, Serena called. Her voice was different. Stripped of arrogance. Shaking. Evelyn, the kids got sick, she said. After eating the chocolates. We had to take them to the hospital. My blood turned to ice. What happened? Are they okay? My voice barely came out. The doctors say it was food poisoning, she answered. But, it's strange. The chocolates smelled odd when we opened them, but the kids had already eaten several. In her voice, beneath the panic, I heard something else. Realization. Pieces of a puzzle assembling in her mind, just as they were starting to in mine. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every detail replayed in my head. Ethan's wild reaction. His obsession with whether I had eaten any. His relief that I hadn't, mixed with horror that his own children might have. And then, like a lightning bolt in the dark, the truth erupted in my mind. The chocolates were never meant for the children. They were meant for me. My son. My only son. The boy I had adopted, loved, raised, sacrificed everything for, had tried to poison me. In the following days, my worst fear was confirmed. The doctors found traces of arsenic, Serena told me over the phone, her voice hollow, in the children's blood. Arsenic. I had only ever heard that word in crime movies. Now it was inside the bodies of my grandchildren. Thank God, the dose wasn't high enough to kill them. They were nauseous, weak, monitored constantly, but ultimately, they pulled through. Serena called again, her voice stripped of all her usual contempt. Evelyn, she said quietly, I don't think those chocolates were meant to be shared. I think they were, specifically for you. Her words didn't surprise me. By then, my heart already knew. My mind just didn't want to accept it. Ethan disappeared. No calls. No messages. No visits to the hospital. He vanished. When Serena went to his office in Manhattan, they told her he had requested emergency leave. He had run. Like a coward. I knew one thing. If he was scared, he would go to the one person who had always protected him from consequences. My younger sister, Vivian. I drove to Vivian's house with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I'd known her patterns with Ethan for years. Every time he messed up, she defended him. He's just a boy. He didn't mean it. You're too hard on him. My little sister had always had a soft spot for him. Even when I should have been tougher. When I turned the corner, I saw it. Ethan's car, parked down the street. When Vivian opened the door, guilt was written all over her face. Evelyn, she murmured, I didn't know you were coming. I know he's here, I said. My voice didn't even sound like mine. Ethan appeared in the hallway like a ghost. He looked tired, unshaven, hollow-eyed. But what shocked me most wasn't his appearance. It was his expression. There was no shame. No remorse. No horror at what he had done. Only resentment. As if I were the one who had wronged him. Why? I asked, my throat burning. Why did you want to kill me, Ethan? The word kill tore something inside me as it left my mouth. He didn't hesitate. Because you're a burden, he replied, his voice icy. Because you've always been a burden. Because I need your inheritance and you just won't die. The world went silent. My inheritance. I whispered. Don't act surprised, he snapped. You hid money from me for years. I only found out when you got sick last year and I saw your bank papers. $200,000, Mom. Sitting there while I'm drowning. I need that money now, not when you're 90. That money was 40 years of double shifts and sleepless nights. 40 years of eating cheap food and never going on vacation. 40 years of living like a pauper so he could live like a prince. And you're old, he continued coldly. What do you need it for? You've already lived your life. I have kids. A future. Responsibilities. A future built on my corpse. I asked, shaking. In a way, he shrugged. The arsenic dose was calculated. It would look like a heart attack. A natural death. No one would suspect anything. You'd die in your sleep. Peacefully. And I'd inherit what's mine anyway. His expression as he spoke, calm, almost logical, was more horrifying than any scream. This wasn't madness. This was a plan. A long, careful, calculated plan. How long have you been thinking about this? I whispered. He smiled bitterly. Long enough to do it right. I bought the best chocolates to hide the taste. I researched dosages. I made sure it would look natural. Everything was perfect. And what ruined your perfect plan? I asked. His eyes filled with hatred. You, he spat. You and your ridiculous need to give everything away. You're too stupid to eat the chocolates your own son gives you. You always have to play the martyr. The saint. The giver. The irony hit me like a punch. The very flaw he'd always mocked, the way I put others first, had saved my life. But then he said the words that turned my horror into something else. Rage. Now Serena knows everything, he growled. The kids almost died because of you. Because you can't respect boundaries. Because you insist on sharing things that don't belong to you. He was blaming me for his failed murder attempt. Right then, Serena appeared at the doorway. She had heard everything. Tears streamed down her face as she looked at him. Ethan, she choked out. How could you? How could you put your own children in danger? He turned to her, and I watched the same coldness I'd just seen in his eyes for me switch to her. Nothing was supposed to happen to them, he said. The poison was for her, not for you. Not for them. But you knew I always share everything with the kids, she cried. You knew there was a chance they'd eat them. He shrugged. It was a calculated risk, he muttered. A calculated risk. My grandchildren, my innocent, sweet grandchildren, had been nothing more than a calculated risk in his plan to kill me. Something died in me at that moment. The boy I had adopted. The child I'd cradled, comforted, fed, clothed. He was gone. The man standing in front of me was a stranger. A dangerous, empty stranger. It's over, I told him quietly. Everything between us is over. He laughed. The sound was bitter, cruel. What are you going to do, Mom? He sneered. Call the police? Turn in your own son? You don't have the guts. You're too weak. You always have been. For 40 years, he'd been right. I had been too weak. Too weak to say no. Too weak to set boundaries. Too weak to see what he was becoming. But something broke, and something else woke up, inside me that day. You're right, I said. I've been too weak for too long. I turned toward the door. But that ends today. Wait and see what a weak woman can do when she finally decides she's had enough. His screams followed me outside. You're ungrateful. After everything I've done for you. Everything he had done for me. He had tried to kill me. And in his twisted mind, I still owed him loyalty. That night, alone in my small house, I cried like I hadn't cried in decades. I cried for the son I thought I had. For the woman I had been. For all the years of love poured into someone who saw me as a walking bank account. When I finally stopped, one thought remained. The old Evelyn had died that night. A new Evelyn would wake up in the morning. The next day, I called Martin. Martin had been our family lawyer for years. Wills. Insurance. Small things. Evelyn, he said gently when I told him everything. This is serious. Are you sure? I have no doubt, I replied. And I'm done protecting him. Serena had already confirmed the arsenic to him. The hospital had records. There were test results. Medical reports. We need to move fast, Martin said. And if you really mean it, we need to do this properly. We did. But before I destroyed Ethan's life, I needed to rebuild mine. I couldn't do that in the same house where I had raised the boy who became my would-be killer. Martin helped me find an apartment in the Upper East Side of Manhattan. A penthouse. Marble floors. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A view of the city that took my breath away. A kitchen prettier than anything I'd ever seen in a magazine. The rent for 1 month was more than Ethan made in 3. I paid in cash. The real estate agent looked at me, a modestly dressed 69-year-old woman, with open surprise. It's for my retirement, I said with a small smile. I decided it's time I give myself a few treats. In truth, I wasn't just retiring from work. I was retiring from being everyone's doormat. From being just Mom. From being the weak, self-sacrificing woman who accepted crumbs and called it love. The apartment had a small study, a quiet room with a wide desk and a window overlooking the city. That became my war room. Martin and I sat there one afternoon with stacks of documents spread out in front of us. First, we protect your money, he said. Ethan knows about this account, he pointed at one paper. But not about these. He showed me 3 other accounts. Certificates of deposit I had renewed every year. Old savings bonds I'd forgotten about. Stocks I'd bought on the advice of a coworker decades ago and never touched. In total, nearly $400,000. Not $200,000, like Ethan thought. 40 years of sacrifice turned into a quiet little empire. I had lived like a poor woman all my life. I was going to die like a queen. But money was only one weapon. The other was information. Martin hired a private investigator named Cole, a former cop who specialized in family cases. Within weeks, he came back with a folder so thick it made my hands tremble. "Your son," Cole said, "has been living a double life. Gambling. Casinos in Atlantic City. Illegal betting rooms in Queens. Shady men in dark parking lots. He had borrowed money from loan sharks. Serious ones. The kind that don't send reminders by email. His total debt to them is over $50,000, Cole explained. He mortgaged the family home behind Serena's back. Pawned her car. Emptied the kids' savings accounts to pay interest. He's been lying to all of you. My son hadn't just tried to kill me. He'd been systematically stealing from his own family. The perfect, successful accountant was nothing but a desperate, addicted gambler. The poison in the chocolates was only the last move in a long chain of betrayals. While Ethan thought I was hiding somewhere, broken and sobbing, I was transforming. On purpose. I hired a stylist named Yolanda. "Evelyn," she said, looking me up and down with a professional eye, "we're going to bring out the woman of power inside you." We cut my grey, neglected hair into a sharp, modern style and colored it a warm, elegant brown. We replaced my old, shapeless clothes with tailored suits, soft blouses, good shoes. Not flashy, just undeniably high quality. When she finished, I looked at the mirror and didn't recognize myself. "Look at you," Yolanda said proudly. "You look like a CEO." Then I hired a psychologist, a woman who specialized in helping older women reclaim their power. "For 40 years, she said gently in our first session, you confused love with obedience, kindness with submission, motherhood with self-erasure. That ends now." Those sessions were brutal. I had to admit ugly truths. I had raised a monster, and I'd helped create him by never allowing him to face real consequences. "True love includes boundaries," she told me. "Without boundaries, there is no love. There is complicity." I wrote that word in my journal. Complicity. Never again. A month after our confrontation at Vivian's house, I decided to make my first move. Not in court. In public. I chose an exclusive art gallery opening in the city. Wealthy people. Photographers. Little glasses of champagne. The kind of place Ethan would only be in if he was looking for someone to impress, or to exploit. I arrived in a black designer suit, heels that made me taller, and subtle jewelry that whispered money. As I walked through the gallery, people glanced at me with that quick, assessing look reserved for someone important. And then I saw him. Ethan. In a tailored suit, drink in hand, trying hard to charm a small group of businessmen. Serena stood beside him, clearly uncomfortable, out of place. Our eyes met across the room. His face went white. The broken, defeated woman he'd left a month ago had vanished. In her place stood someone he'd never met. I walked toward him slowly, savoring every step. "Hello, Ethan," I said sweetly when I reached him. "What a surprise to see you here." His mouth opened, then closed. "Mom, what are you doing here?" he stammered. "I'm enjoying my retirement," I replied, taking a sip of champagne. I decided it was time I started collecting. One of the businessmen smiled politely. "Retirement? Congratulations. What line of work are you retiring from?" "I'm retiring from being too generous," I answered, my eyes never leaving Ethan's. When you spend your whole life giving, some people start to think they're entitled. At some point, you have to stop giving. I paused, letting the silence stretch. and start collecting what you're owed. Ethan understood. For the first time in his life, he was afraid of me. He began calling me after that night. Dozens of times. I didn't answer. Let him feel what I had felt for years. Helpless. In the meantime, Martin moved into the legal phase. We filed a civil lawsuit for attempted murder, using the children's toxicology reports, hospital records, Serena's statement, and the recording. Because yes, when I went to Vivian's house that day, Cole had placed a tiny device inside my purse. I had recorded Ethan confessing. Evelyn, Martin said, this case will be loud. The media will eat it up. Are you ready for that? I've been silent for 40 years, I replied. I'm ready to speak. But we didn't stop there. Cole's investigation into Ethan's finances uncovered fraud, embezzlement, and misuse of family assets. He had turned my love into his safety net. I was about to cut it and pull it tight around his neck. Before we went to war, there was one more person I needed on my side. Serena. Despite our difficult history, she was as much a victim as I was. Maybe more. She had slept next to that monster. I invited her to lunch at an elegant restaurant. When she walked in and saw me, transformed, her jaw literally dropped. Evelyn, you look incredible, she said, genuinely. Thank you, I smiled. Sit. We have a lot to talk about. I slid the folder Cole had prepared across the table. Bank records, photos, mortgage papers, loan shark notes. As she flipped through them, her face drained of color. He mortgaged the house, she whispered, without telling me. He took the kids' savings, She couldn't finish. Serena, I said softly, none of this is your fault. But now you know. And knowing gives you power. I laid out the plan. She could sue for marital fraud, regain the house, freeze any remaining accounts, protect the children. I'll cover the legal costs, I told her, on one condition. She looked up, eyes red. I need you to testify, I said, about the chocolates, about his confession, about the kind of man he really is. She didn't hesitate. It's the least I can do, she said quietly, after what he did to all of us. While we were speaking, I saw him. Ethan. He had followed her. He walked toward our table, eyes darting between our faces and the papers. What is this? He demanded. What are you talking about? We're talking about you, I replied calmly. Your debts. Your lies. Your attempt to murder me. All the things you thought would stay hidden. He grabbed the papers, scanning desperately. Serena, he begged. Don't listen to her. She's insane. She's always tried to turn you against me. She's manipulating you. No, Serena cut him off. Enough. I know everything now. About the house. The gambling. The loan sharks. The stolen money. People at other tables started to look over. And I know, she added, voice rising, that you tried to kill your own mother. Her words dropped like a bomb in the middle of that quiet, expensive restaurant. The whole room went silent. Ethan shrank, lowering his voice under the weight of all those eyes. Serena, please, he hissed. We can fix this. We don't need lawyers. We don't need. I'm protecting our children, she said, standing up. And that means protecting them from you. My lawyer will contact you. She walked out without looking back. He stared after her, then turned toward me, shaking with rage. You did this, he snarled. You destroyed my family. I only turned on the lights, I replied. You're the one who filled the room with filth. The lawsuits hit him like a storm. Attempted murder. Family fraud. Civil damages. His accounts were frozen. His salary was garnished. His reputation shattered. Then the media got hold of my story. Channel 5 News invited me for an interview. I sat in front of the cameras, almost unnaturally calm. "Ms. Evelyn," the reporter asked, "how did you discover your son wanted to kill you?" I told them everything. The chocolates. The call. The kids collapsing. His confession. "And how does a mother feel?" she asked softly, finding out her son wanted her dead. "I felt free," I answered. Free from an illusion I'd kept alive for 40 years. Free to stop protecting someone who never protected me. The interview went viral. People recognized him. Neighbors. Co-workers. Friends. The son who tried to poison his mother. His boss called him into an urgent meeting. "The company cannot be associated with this kind of scandal," he said. "You're fired, effective immediately." The loan sharks saw the same news. And they don't like losing investments. They started coming to the house. Threatening. Demanding their money. And what did Ethan do? He ran. Again. He left Serena and the children to face those men alone. Late one night, my phone rang. It was Serena, sobbing. "They came with guns, Evelyn," she cried. "They said if Ethan doesn't pay, they'll take the house. Everything." "Where is he?" I asked. "He ran out the back door," she whispered. "He left us here alone with them." "Pack a bag," I said firmly. "Take the kids to your mother's. Tomorrow, I'll handle this." The next morning, I drove to their house with Martin and 2 bodyguards. The loan sharks were there, measuring windows, looking at furniture. "Are you Ethan's mother?" the leader asked when I approached. "Yes," I said calmly. "And I have a proposal." I handed him a check for the full $50,000 he was owed. "I'm not doing this for him," I added. "I'm doing it for my daughter-in-law and my grandchildren. They are not responsible for his stupidity." He studied me. Then the check. Then me again. "Deal," he said finally. "As of this moment, your son's debt to us is paid. He's on his own." When they left, Serena rushed out, still shaking. "I can't let you pay his debts," she said. "Not after everything." "I didn't," I replied. "I paid yours. And in exchange." I handed her 2 documents. "The first one transfers the house entirely to your name," I explained. "He no longer legally owns it. The second is a loan agreement. You owe me this money, but you can pay it back in small amounts over 20 years. On your terms. Not his. Not theirs." She stared at me, tears streaming. "For the first time, this house belongs to someone who deserves it," I said. That afternoon, Ethan finally called me. "Mom," he sobbed. "I'm in danger. The loan sharks." "I already paid them," I cut in. "Your debt is cleared." I heard the sigh of relief. "I knew you wouldn't abandon me," he said. "I knew you still. But I didn't do it for you," I interrupted. "I did it for Serena and the children. And by the way, the house is no longer yours. I transferred it to her." Silence. "You can't do that," he finally shouted. "It's my house." "You bought it with money you then stole and gambled away," I replied. "Now it's in the hands of someone who actually cares about those kids. You're homeless, Ethan. For the first time in your life, you'll have to stand on your own feet." I hung up. For once, I didn't feel guilty. I felt clean. From there, his life collapsed. Serena got a restraining order. The court granted her full temporary custody. He was kicked out every time he tried to step onto his property. He rented a room in a cheap motel on the edge of town. And then, in an act of pure narcissism, he did something that destroyed what was left of his image. He went live on social media. "My mother is crazy," he declared from that dingy motel room. "She made it all up. I never tried to poison anyone." But the internet is not kind to liars. "Why did the kids have arsenic in their blood then?" someone commented. "Why did you disappear? Why won't you sue her for defamation if she's lying?" He had no answers. When someone wrote, "If you're innocent, sue her," the live chat went silent. He couldn't sue me. He knew the evidence I had. His silence was all the audience needed. Clips of him blaming me went viral, not as a defense, but as a case study in narcissism. Psychologists on TV analyzed his denial like a textbook example of a manipulator caught in his own web. He had tried to tell his side of the story. Instead, he hammered the last nail into his own coffin. The criminal trial began 6 months later. The courtroom was full. Reporters. Curious onlookers. A few people I recognized from my old neighborhood. Ethan looked older, thinner, his arrogance cracked but not completely gone. I took the stand. "Ms. Evelyn," the prosecutor asked gently, "how did you feel when you realized your son had tried to murder you?" "I felt awake," I said. "For 40 years, I lied to myself about who he was. That day, I finally saw him clearly." They played the audio recording. His voice filled the room. "Because you're a burden. Because I need your inheritance now. Because you should have died already." No tears. No hesitation. Just cold logic. Serena testified. Doctors testified. Experts on poison testified. When it was his turn, he tried one last performance. "I love my mother," he said tearfully. "This is all a misunderstanding. I never wanted to hurt anyone." But his own voice on that recording made every word crumble. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty of attempted first-degree murder. Guilty of endangering the welfare of minors. Guilty of aggravated fraud. The judge sentenced him to 12 years in prison. No possibility of parole before 8. As they handcuffed him, he turned to me. "Mom," he shouted. "You're still my mother. You can't do this to me." I stayed seated. I didn't flinch. He had lost the right to call me Mom the day he planned my death. The years that followed were the most unexpected of my life. I didn't just move on. I rose. The civil lawsuit granted me $300,000 in damages. Not that I expected to ever see that money from a man sitting behind bars, but it was symbolic. The state formally recognized what he had done to me. Serena divorced him and obtained full custody. His parental rights were terminated due to his conviction and the risk he posed. My grandchildren were safe. And me. I used my pain as fuel. I learned to manage my investments. With the help of an ethical advisor named Oscar, my $400,000 quietly grew. I created a trust for my grandchildren Lila and Rowan, to be available when they turned 25. Money Ethan would never touch. But more than that, I found a purpose. One day at the park, I met an older woman named Yolanda sitting alone on a bench, eyes red. "I live with my son and his wife," she confessed. "They treat me like I'm in the way. Like I'm a burden." Her words cut deep. She was me, a few years earlier. I told her my story. Not all the gory details, but enough. "Yolanda," I said, "you do not have to accept being treated like that. You still have rights. You still have value." That conversation became the seed of something bigger. I started inviting women like her to my apartment on Thursdays. We shared stories. Compared bruises, some on skin, most on hearts. We cried. We laughed. We began to heal. We called ourselves the Circle of Strength. With Martin's help, those meetings became an official foundation. The Evelyn Foundation for the Dignity of Older Women. We provided temporary shelter for elderly women escaping abuse. Legal advice. Psychological support. Community. Within 2 years, we had helped more than 200 women leave homes where they were treated like slaves, bank accounts, or ghosts. Every one of them was a small victory against the mentality that had created Ethan. 3 years into his sentence, I received a letter from prison. It was from him. My first instinct was to throw it away. I didn't. "Dear Mom," it began. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I've been reflecting. He blamed his trauma, his biological parents' death, the adoption, life, fate, everything but his own choices. Please give me another chance, he wrote in shaky letters. I need your forgiveness to heal. Need. Always about what he needed. I showed the letter to my psychologist. Do you want to answer? She asked. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me feels obligated. Old habits die hard. What does the new Evelyn want? She asked quietly. The answer came surprisingly clear. The new Evelyn wanted peace, not reconciliation. So I wrote back. Ethan, I began, careful not to write son. I received your letter. I am glad you are reflecting. But my healing does not depend on seeing you, or on forgiving you in the way you want. Forgiveness, if I ever fully arrive there, will be for my own peace, not as a gift to you. I have built a full, happy life without you. Your absence is not a wound. It is a space filled with tranquility. I hope you find whatever redemption is possible for you. But my path no longer includes trying to save you from the consequences of your choices. I signed it simply. Evelyn. Not Mom. I mailed it. And felt lighter. Years passed. The foundation grew. We opened shelters in multiple cities. We influenced public policies around elder abuse. Serena became a psychologist specializing in family trauma and elder abuse, and we co-wrote a book. It's Never Too Late, Finding Your Strength After 70. It became a bestseller. Women wrote from all over the world. I saw myself in your story. Because of you, I left my abusive home. Because of you, I finally said no. On my 79th birthday, while I was working at the Foundation's office, the phone rang. It was the prison warden. Ms. Evelyn, he said gently, I'm calling to inform you that your son Ethan passed away last night. It appears he suffered a massive heart attack in his sleep. I paused. Not from shock. That had burned out of me years earlier. From the irony. He had planned for me to die of a natural heart attack. In my sleep. After eating poisoned chocolates. In the end, he was the one who died that way. He left a letter for you, the warden added. Would you like us to send it? I thought for a moment. Yes, I said. Send it. 2 days later, I read his last words. He spoke of regret. Shame. He said he'd followed my work with the Foundation in the news. That he felt a strange mix of pride and guilt. I know there's no forgiveness for what I did, he wrote. I just want you to know that my last thoughts were of how extraordinary you are, and how horribly I failed you. I hope my death brings you the final peace you deserve. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. I didn't cry. I didn't feel triumph. I felt closure. The son I truly loved had died the day I realized who he was. This was just the burial of his body. On my 80th birthday, the Evelyn Foundation held a gala. 2,000 people filled the hall. Politicians, donors, lawyers, survivors. My grandchildren, Lila and Rowan, sat in the front row, dressed up, eyes bright. I stepped up to the microphone. I spent 40 years believing that love meant giving everything, I began. My time, my money, my dignity, my health. I was wrong. Kindness without limits is not kindness. It's self-erasure. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's complicity. My son tried to kill me for my inheritance, I continued. Instead of destroying me, he forced me to become who I should have been all along. A woman who loves, including herself. A woman who gives, but never again at the cost of her own soul. The applause lasted for minutes. Lila hugged me afterward, tears in her eyes. Grandma, she said, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. That night, alone on my terrace, the city lights sparkling below, I thought about everything that had happened since the day those chocolates arrived at my door. My son had wanted to steal my material inheritance. He failed. Instead, he awakened a different inheritance inside me, one of strength, wisdom, courage. An inheritance I now pass on to every woman who walks through the doors of our shelters, to every grandmother who decides she is not a burden, but a human being worthy of respect. It took me 70 years to find my power. If you're listening to my story, I hope it doesn't take you that long. My son wanted me dead. Instead, I finally started to live.